Welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about billable expenses. So before we get started looking at QuickBooks Online, this sample company that I have pulled up here, what is a billable expense? A billable expense is something that you pay for that you then need to bill your client to be reimbursed. So for example, I sometimes pay for the QuickBooks subscription of my clients. And so that charge goes on my credit card, but I need to bill my client for that charge. That's a billable expense. And when you have a lot of those going on, it can be easy to lose track of them and forget who you billed and who you didn't. So QuickBooks has a great workflow to make it very seamless and to make sure you don't miss out on any money that you're owed. To get started, we will look at the banking feed where there is a checking account and credit card connected to QuickBooks. You see some transactions have come through. We're going to use an expense as an example. So here we have an expense for $1,200, and we're going to pretend that this is a billable expense. So this company has paid for this, but they need to be reimbursed by a client. Before we get into the details, make sure you can see these two buttons where it says Customer Project with this drop-down box and the billable checkmark. If you can't see these two buttons, two things might be wrong. One, you might be using QuickBooks Simple Start or QuickBooks Essentials, which doesn't have these features, so you will have to upgrade to QuickBooks Plus. Or if you do have QuickBooks Plus or QuickBooks Advanced, you might have not turned these features on in settings. So let me show you how to do that. Go to the gear icon in the top right corner and click Account and Settings. Under the Expense section, you're going to just click in this general area to open up the options, and you want to make sure that the green toggle is turned on for these two options where it says Track Expenses and Items by Customer. That's going to give you that drop-down box to pick your customer name, and then also Make Expenses and Items Billable. So both of those need to be turned on for this to work. Again, if you're not seeing any of these options, it's because you don't have the correct QuickBooks version. You need QuickBooks Plus or Advanced. I also like to check this markup with the default rate option, and I put 0 because I don't always mark things up at all, and if I do, I don't always use the same percentage. But if you check the box and put 0, at least the option will show up on the screen, so you'll be able to choose to do it or not to do it. So if you've made any changes here, click Save and then click Done in the bottom right corner. I'm just going to X out because I didn't have to make any changes. And now hopefully your bank feed screen is showing these two options here, the customer drop-down box and the billable box. So we're going to pretend that this charge here from a rental, so we're going to put the vendor name in, and we're going to pick the category of this charge. I'm just going to say that it was, let's see, do we have office expenses here? The client that I want to pay for this, I'm going to say is ABC customer. They owe me this money, so I'm going to check the billable box. And I'm going to click Add. And I can keep going through and keep clearing out my bank feed, and QuickBooks will keep track in the background of all of the transactions that I've marked as billable. Then, when it's time for me to do my invoicing at the end of the month, I can go to Plus New and click on Invoice and type in the name of my ABC customer. And you see what happened there. On the right side, QuickBooks pulled open this little drawer. There's my billable expense charge. QuickBooks kept track of it for me, so I can go ahead and click Add, and it will now be added on to the invoice to bill ABC customer. Whatever the description is that was showing on the expense will show up here on the invoice, but you can change this if you want to and say anything else or delete it altogether. If you're not seeing what we just went over on the invoice side. It could be because QuickBooks has upgraded your invoice module. They're doing this to select customers, and the new module does not yet have billable expenses. So if your invoice screen doesn't look like this and you are in the new invoice module, you'll need to go into the top right corner of your screen. There will be a button to go back to the old version. QuickBooks says that billable expenses and a few other features are coming soon to the new version, but for now, if you want to do billable expenses, you'll have to revert back to the old invoice template, which looks like the one here on my screen. So after you have added any other items you need to this invoice, you can keep piling on the charges onto this invoice. You can hit save, save and close, save and send, whatever your procedure for invoicing is then. I do want to show you how this shows up on your reports. So let's click on reports and look at our profit and loss. Right here at the top, you see billable expense income. That's being driven by the invoice that I just made requesting the money from my customer. And you note it only shows that line item for the $1,200, not the full invoice amount. The rest of the invoice will be divided among the other income accounts that you have set up. And the corresponding charge on my credit card for the $1,200 is wherever I categorized it. So I think right down here, I put it in office expenses. So there's my $1,200. So you don't lose track in this method of the proper expense account, and you don't inflate your typical income lines with that amount. It's separated so you can keep track of how much are you floating through your credit card on behalf of your customers, which can be useful information to know for cash flow purposes. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions about billable expenses, there is a blog post on my website that I will link to below that goes into a little bit more detail. Also, feel free to leave comments with your questions. Thank you for watching.